Hello and welcome to the GMS Magazine channel. This is a blast from the past. We are going to go today all the way back to 1984 when Chaosium published the deluxe box set of Runequest and, well, compare it with the current Runequest Starter Set and see what is actually different. Yeah, welcome to Blast from the Past. Runequest, well, firstly, I have to say, this is going to be a very unfair comparison because this is the full Runequest Deluxe Edition that came out with absolutely everything you needed, but this is a starter set. This is just enough to keep you going and to get you introduced into the absolutely incredible and ever-expanding world of Runequest. So if you expect that both things should be the same, no, they are two different products, but I want to compare what the production values were like in the mid-80s compared to what they are like 30 years or 30 odd years after that. I can't believe this is 30 odd years old. This is amazing. Okay, so let's start with the deluxe box set. One of the things that I find interesting comparing the artwork is how this is a more kind of Celtic feel to it, and yet we have a bit more of a Mesoamerican type of iconography in the artwork, and yet it's so beautiful. I love the fact that Chaosium in 1984 already had a woman dressed as a normal warrior in the cover of their products. That alone is just precious. You will look in the back with a completely different style, and I find interesting how there's an awful lot of wording in here which is very difficult to read, and I don't know if this is because this thing has faded with time or if it's just the way that things were done in the past, but if we compare it with how it's done today, yeah, big massive difference, and I have to say I prefer today. Also take a look at how the box is slightly bigger, you know, in the starter set, slightly taller, and just a tiny little bit, oh, no more than a tiny little bit. It's nearly half an inch wider. Okay, so that's quite an interesting bit of comparison there. The sides looked already quite beautiful. I really love the side because you have the thickness of the box, allow you to have the illustration of the cover as well, which is absolutely excellent. The box though is not particularly sturdy, and I'm amazed that this thing has lasted for so long in such good quality. But yet then, yes, I do take very good care of my books. So there we go. So we have again Master Book, Magic Book, the Player's Book. We're going to go in order. So, and then we have some maps. Well, let's firstly take a look at the Player's Book, shall we? Somebody did this protecting of the corners in here, which is excellent because this is just staple bound, and you can see that the staples, well, maybe you can see the staples are already rusty with time, and yet the paper is lasting amazingly well, absolutely unbelievably well, which is totally wonderful and fantastic. Love the layout. Look at all these little things. I'm sorry, I'm kicking out a little bit in here. This is so wonderful to see, but there we are. Oh my god, this is so dreadful. This is so difficult to read against the pink. How does it compare with the new one though? Let's look at this. Okay. So that we get the dice in here. Rules, the world, and solo quests. So they're all on adventures. So we have 4 books in here, very different ones. And as you can imagine, yeah, very different in every single way. Again, the Runequest, the current books are a little bit, just a tiny little bit taller and a little bit wider as well. And same thing with just being the same sort of paper. Of course, the cover is considerably improved in the new edition, even though the Chaosium logo is a lot more visible here in the old edition than it is in the starter set. The layout is, yeah, cleaner, I would say. I think it's a lot cleaner today. There's a lot more information, there's a lot more going on everywhere in here. And yet, there's a lot simpler, more accessible to read, which is wonderful. The content, the table of contents, comparatively speaking, look at that. Now that is a very comprehensive table of content. That is just amazing. Totally amazing. And I can imagine, I mean, nowadays, when you make a table of content, it's relatively easy to do. You tell your layout software, regardless of whether you use InDesign or what have you, you tell what are the title, the sections that are meant to be going into the table of content, and InDesign populates it automatically. So you just have to define the styles, the fonts, so on and so forth, and then InDesign populate it automatically depending on what you define throughout the book. It's a bit more complex than that, but you know, summarizing it quite a lot, that is what it amounts to. I can't imagine that being the case in 1984. You probably had to write down somewhere what was meant to go into the table of content and putting it in order, and for goodness sake, make no mistake, because once you go to print it, that's it, and there's not going to be, you know, one PDF after another that you can double check time and time again. So wow, that must have been the hell of a job. If we look at the cartography inside the book, let's take a look and see if we can find some cartography in the book 1 rules of the Glorantha starter set. Seems not only in the back, but I can imagine that it's going to be fairly similar. But anyway, the backs of the books don't match up. The new book, I've been asked by my producer, which he is also my husband, if the books in the back, if they make a bigger map, which I haven't noticed this before when we did the unboxing. That is super amazing. Very, very amazing. I love that, and I don't think we can do it justice because the camera won't fit. So I wonder what is the region, because this is Sarta on the far point, Stagland, but I think yeah, I don't think any of this is not as detailed. I bet you anything that this was already here somewhere. But this is more Europe North African centric, Middle Eastern. So anyway, okay, so that's what to do. Well spotted, my husband. I didn't see this before. Very good. I have a great husband. Look, I'm married now. So, okay, so this is what we get in book 1. Love how the artwork from the 80s, so line drawn, you know, they're just super cute, and how it's a lot more sparse. There's a lot less of it all over the place. Wow, Then we get the game system. Look at these tables. They are so 80s. We were so used to them at the time. Absolutely incredible. And we used to read this like maniacs. We would just sit down after lunch or weekends and just read and read and read because, well, life was slightly simpler then and we had less things to do compared with the things that we have to do today. Let's take a look at the magic book. Okay. So we have the introduction to magic and yes, a complete table of content in here. Once more. Of course, all of this has been reduced quite considerably in the starter set because here you get just a bunch of the rules. You don't get the whole gamut of all the rules for all the everything or all the magic because it is a starter set, whereas here you actually do get everything, which is wonderful to see. Okay. Then we get the Game Master book. This book has 46 pages of game mastering duties, planning a campaign, scenario design, scenario aids, languages in role-playing. You know the one thing I like about this sort of thing, and is you got the feeling that the authors at the time, they weren't just writing a role-playing game, they were world builders. They really had to think very hard as to how to design their games, how were they doing it? Because all of this happened because they were playing games and thought that everybody else or somebody else might like to play with it. And they developed it. Now, okay, there have been a few utter and complete geniuses of role-playing games over the last couple of generations. And Greg Stafford was certainly one of them, undoubtedly, because to be able to develop work in the early 90s that today is still not just relevant, but useful and a foundational part of modern role-playing games, even to today, where we're seeing an incredible spread of new rules, new approaches. That takes a genius to do, hands down. And Greg Stafford was one of them. And I'm really sorry that I didn't get to meet the man when he was still among us. But I know people who have and speak about him very, very highly, and that really warms my heart quite a lot. So, a lot of encounter tables. I love these because they can be so useful as a starting point to then generate something else. I used to love how we used to create our own treasures and dungeons just by rolling some dice and taking a look at where they would take us. And it was just such a wonderful time of discovery of role-playing games. It's fantastic. And it was a different thing because today, and this is something that I tell an awful lot of people and they just don't get it, but today you're going from having something to having something else. We went from having nothing to having everything. It was magical, absolutely magical. It's wonderful to see it, to go from one stepping stone to the next, but to go from nowhere to the first stepping stone, yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, okay, we get maps. We get a mapping here. Oh, where's it going? Okay, the player's book and the creature's book. Oh my god, I've forgotten we have this in here. Oh, and the 5th book. My god. And then the game aids. This is, my friends, how long ago I have not opened this box. Okay, let's take a look at the player's book 1. Because this would be completely different in terms of... one second, do I have 2? Oh, no, I have 2. Oh, wait a second, I have 2. Why do I have 2? Oh my god, yes, I remember now. Because this has been signed by Greg Stafford. I bought this because it had been autographed by Greg Stafford. This is... Oh my god, I've completely forgotten this. I'm a Muppet. I am a complete Muppet. Oh, this is wonderful. I had forgotten this. I just made myself very, very, very happy all of a sudden without even realizing. I'm going to have to look after that even better now. Maybe that's why I haven't opened it in so long, but then, hey, welcome to my memory. Okay, creatures. Do we have creatures in here? We have book 2. No, we have the World of Glorantha. Game Master, Player's Handbook. And the Glorantha book is number 5 in the original box. So let's compare, because here we have 2 about Glorantha, 4 and 5. And I find it quite interesting that creatures come before world in the number. I would have expected this to be number 4 and this to be number 5. But it is the other way around. Design choice? I don't know. Maybe they were expecting at the time that they would want to use it with D&D instead of just doing it by itself. I don't know. Maybe Jeff can tell me this. Hi, Jeff. So, the Glorantha book. Let's look. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Oh my god, I'm made myself so happy. This is signed by Greg Stafford. This is amazing. So this is the map of Glorantha as we know, which is just a chunk of the world, of course. And it's interesting that we are getting more on, and of course this is to do with technical development more than anything else, but we now try to get more of a vibe as to how the city would be working than what the world and the islands and where everything would be. We get into the mythos of and history. We get the runes, what is Glorantha, magic and religion, okay, gods and cults, yes, we get more or less the same. Are these runes? Yeah, some are exactly the same. We're getting them. Yes, we do. Okay, so it seems like we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here we have, oh, this is going to be harder to count. So 3, 5, 7, 10, 13, 17, 20, 23, 25, 27, 29, 33, lots more. Considerably. But then they are repeated. Well, these are unique. There's no repetition here at all, whereas these are repeated quite a lot, and there isn't a simple map of runes. So we're getting runes for air, beats, chaos, darkness, death, disorder. Wow, that is a lot of information in there. Then we go into the Cult of Ernalda, the Cult of Ernalda, community, the world. It's a completely different organization. Has absolutely no resemblance. Whatsoever with the way it has been organized in the starter set. None at all. Everything is a lot more compact, but also everything seems to be a lot more commonsensically organized in here to give you just the information you need in the chunks that you need. That's very interesting indeed. And if we take a look at the creatures, so we get incomplete creatures. There's no bestiary per se in the starter set. I wonder if there are going to be some enemies in here, in the back. No, it doesn't seem to. Perhaps in the adventure book. Solo questing and adventures. There might be some in here, but there's no bestiary as such. Now, and then the creatures, so they go in alphabetical order. Not everyone has an illustration, because that would be very expensive at the time, and it wouldn't be feasible to do. Very, very different, the whole thing. And now we look at, well, these are the player aids. Well, firstly, this is a leaflet. Can be heroes. This is, of course, when it was still with the Avalon Hill Company. Well, there was a subscription rate at the time for the role-playing magazine. I wonder if some of you already still have some of these issues. That would be wonderful to see as well. Show us, please. And then you get a game aids, which is a lot of table all over the place in pink, no less. Very difficult to read, I have to say. Ship sheet, character sheet. Wow. This is so good. And then we get the map. Fantasy Europe. I need to do something about that, don't I? Sorry. There we go. Can I widen this even more, perhaps a little bit? Yeah, I can see the microphone in there. Sorry about that, guys and gals and everybody else. So there we go. So that is the difference between the production values of 1984, a time with big hair, big voices, shoulder pads all over the place, and an awful lot of people really, really worried about what was going to happen to those poor, poor people of Dallas, and Dynasty and Falcon Crest, whilst some of us were rune questing all over the world and gallivanting. Having said that, and bearing the massive amount of differences between this starter set and the original deluxe edition, I have to say, sorry, let me do this so we don't see the microphone, because it's gonna drive me completely crazy. And yes, I can see because I have two little monitors in front of the camera. One day I need to do one of these documentaries about how we do things in here. I think some of you might enjoy it. Anyway, I have to say, what have not changed is the level of detail and production value that Chaosium had into Runequest. Because even with the differences of black and white and the kind of paper and the fact that this is a full game and this is a starter set, but creating this in 1984, that must have been an absolutely titanic effort. There is a lot of material in there, an awful lot of books. And I can imagine that it would have been a lot easier if it'd been the format at the time to make this thing into just one book, which is what we tend to see today. Personally, I prefer the box, because I can take the little bits and pieces I need, and I don't need to be carrying a 5 kilos book all over the place. So this is wonderful. But the effort that must have taken to produce this to this level of 1980s protection is astonishing. Absolutely stunning. So from that point of view, yeah, 1984 was an absolutely brilliant year, and I love to see how Chaosium is doing things even better than they did before, and they're using all technology to their advantage and adapting the design and book layout and design to more modern sensitivities. This has been wonderful, and it's been signed by Greg Stafford. This is a gem, complete and utter gem. Let me know what you think. Are you still playing this edition of Runequest? Because I'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you played this and play the new one, I would definitely love to hear what the differences are and what you have to say. So please leave me a comment down there. But until the next time, thank you very much indeed for being there, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.